Welcome back to our second part of the discussion, where we are going to touch upon some hot topics in terms of challenges in academia, if you wish. And in this part, I usually start by summarizing some of the most obvious things that we want to address. For example, the publishing industry, the reproducibility, the postdoc crisis, the problem with tenure positions, granting systems. And now we live in a very dynamic times in terms of funding for science, since the events that happened in the US, where now kind of the funding in NIH is a little bit problematic, and there are also other things addressing science. And I don't know which one you would like to pick up and talk about, but we can discuss several. Maybe start with your favorite one, and I'd like to hear your opinion on this particular problem that you'd like to discuss, and also maybe if you can introduce some solution to it, that would be amazing.
Okay, I mean, yes, all are very interesting and they affect our daily life, basically, as scientists. Maybe let's start with the most recent development where President Trump signed an executive order on January 20, where he basically ordered to stop DEI programs. And DEI stands for diversity, equity, inclusion. And effective immediately basically put all personnel involved in such a program on administrative leave. And of course, we are seeing what's happening on the media. And it depends on which TV news channels you're watching. It's one story on CNN, it's another on Fox News. So it's quite a complex matter. And I do have some friends in the United States from both sides of the aisle. And in terms of science, I'm speaking, I think they also share some common background on how to approach, how we understand this issue. So let us first, if you allow me, to break DEI for the non-Americans, because it's all over American news. They're probably bored of it. But what is it for Europeans, for people outside or other places? So this program has historic, basically, roots into the racial and gender and social injustices, and it exists for actually a very good cause, that for having diverse personnel from different gender, different races, different ethnicities, that they should also feel welcome and supported and have basically the platform to engage and be productive, because some ethnicities and minorities in the United States may not have access to opportunities compared to other different communities, let's put it this way. And by the way, it might be surprising for some people, but the EU is not worlds apart. So we also have laws and directives in place that actually enforces similar policies. In the United States, for instance, DEI is not enforced by law, to my best knowledge. I'm not an expert on the topic, but it's more likely encouraged. It's voluntary for companies. And there are some programs during the previous administration that will actually give some money, incentives to promote. So in a sense, it's highly recommended. In the EU, it's on the contrary. So we have, I believe, 3 different directives on inclusion and racial equality and gender equality. And these directives are actually baked within the EU law and EU treaties. And they are enforced. And we do have to report on them. For instance, in some grant application, that you will have to say what did you hire? What is the gender? I mean, some instances the question can be a little bit weird, so I will not even say them here. But it can really go into detail, and I find it. I'm not sure if this is at this point productive here. So while in the US they speak of diversity, equity, and inclusion, in Europe they speak of social inclusion. So I can give example, for instance, the Roma statute, that we include this community in Europe more into the EU, or more recently, for instance, the Ukrainian and Syrian refugees to be included. So what is my take? Let's be here politically careful about it, because it's a very sensitive topic. And at the end of the day, we're not in the United States, right? But I can't help but think about, as an outsider, as a person from Lebanon, about the current situation in Lebanon we have. I mean, we have laws that are more older than DEI, that have similar DEI concepts, in the sense that we have a law of representing religions equally. So, for instance, it's a very old law from the 1920s, that for every 6 Christian, you have to have 6 Muslims. And then you have sub-Christian sects, and you have sub-Muslim sects. And we have 18 different religions between Christians, Muslims, and Jews. And they have to be all equally represented in the government. And the background behind it is that there were some religion minorities in Lebanon, especially under the French mandate. I love France, it's not against France. Under the French mandate, that were misrepresented and were treated as second-class or third-class citizens. Then we had the civil war, and then so, okay, you know what? Let's enforce this. For every 6, we have 6, and then we divide everyone. Then these all have good intentions, but the application is far from the intentions. And in this case, in a sense, then you have the parties that they want a certain election, say, oh, we represent this religion sect, and then we will oversee the hiring process. And then, of course, this is a door for corruption. And you guessed it. I mean, if you know a little bit about the news in Lebanon, you know the country is now in an economic meltdown. I mean, we are now on track of trajectory with the new president, the new government. They are trying to do some work to more focus on the merit, on the merit basis, rather than having an equal religious representation. We still have to have for every 6 from all different religions, but let's not just give it for the corrupt political parties, rather than hire the 6 + 6 on merit basis. I think what's happening in the United States, they can take a page from the Lebanese playbook, that the intentions of DEI are good, but over the course of time may have been corrupted and abused to push political agendas that, for certain parties, that may have ended in harming the minorities themselves. I mean, if you see the backfire on DII and the split in the American politics, I mean, these communities are not in a good position, and most of the affected employees are uncertain about their future. And me, at the end of the day, I'm also alien in the EU, right? I'm not a resident. So all this negative environment will affect us in a way or another, and this will at some point move to the EU. I mean, we're also seeing the rise of the Popular Front, and I'm not saying that this is actually wrong, because there are some certain policies within the EU governments, also here with our government, that are not helping. They are actually working on to pushing in such directions. So. Sorry, that was a long answer, but it's a very critical topic, and I have to make my thoughts clear on it. So I would think that DEI is good. Abandoning it entirely without alternative solutions is not the best idea. And since you don't have bipartisan agreement on it, on the American policies, maybe the Americans should come together and find alternative solutions. You asked me about the solutions. By no means, I'm no expert on it. But one thing that could come to my mind, also again from our Lebanese playbook, is why not leveling the playground early on? I mean, the American education system is one of the most expensive in the world. Look at the EU universities. It's nearly free in Lebanon. It's $100 for one semester. Of course, we have private expensive universities, but they are not the only solution. Why not giving this early education, early access to all parts of society at an affordable prices, and then when they reach to the market, they can be hired based on merit. That they have equal opportunities, they have equal access, and whatever happens afterwards is based on their choice. I mean, if we want to maybe conclude it in one final words, this would be much better than enforcing on the taxpayers' money some solutions that not all the citizens agree upon. Because the other part say, okay, you're taking my taxpayer money to a very select few to make them feel welcomed and included, which also in their defense, this is fair. I mean, we are human, we should have equal rights, and there are very historic roots into this cause, and we cannot solve it overnight. So I would say, so to make everyone happy, first people should come together, should find a solution that works for everyone, bipartisan solution that both parties agree on. And one of the things is, I don't know if education will solve it, early education, easy, accessible, but try to level the playground early on and let the market or the opportunities present themselves equally for everyone.
Wow, this was a remarkable summary of the problem, and thank you for your point of view. It is very interesting to hear, and at the end we need to, I think it's important to, how do you call it, like the common sense.
Absolutely. And this is what we are missing in politics.
Exactly. The common sense is, at the end, people, regardless of gender, social status, religion, skin color, etc., you have to be evaluated based on your skills, based on your qualities, rather than this kind of other aspects. And of course, as you mentioned, a lot of minorities, they don't have access to education and resources early on, and maybe this plays a role. Probably this is exactly the problem, to have a more accessible education and to try to, have more of these minorities get better education, better life quality, etc.
Rather than enforcing it later on the population.
Exactly. And we are humans, and humans tend to be corrupt when they have power or they seek power. And at the end, it boils down to human behavior, right? What do we want as society? And then, unfortunately, you have this kind of we have this history of tribal history, and we are always dividing into tribes, and we fight each other. But at the end of the day, where is the common sense? What do we want? We want to be happy. We want to live a secure life in peace. We want to have access to education, to be able to dream, to achieve the dreams that we have, and of course not hurt each other in the process. So yes, I think it's, I'm also not American. I don't know, I am not as informed as you on the DE section. And I know that this kind of enforced, for example, hiring of particular groups of people is sometimes hurtful
to the group of people themselves.
Exactly, to the groups of people themselves, and also to the group of people that is hiring them. So, of course, I'm speaking of a of the position of a white male, right? Although, nobody knows my background story, and everybody's background story is important to be considered. And, for example, I'm coming in from a country that is nearly not represented in any scientific communities whatsoever. The science in Bulgaria is like nearly zero. I mean, of course, there is some science, but it's very underdeveloped, and we don't have that many opportunities to develop, ourselves as scientists back there. But this is totally another topic. So at the end, I think we really have to be a little bit more human, and to try to organize our scientific community in a better way. What about the other topics that are not that current, but I mean, they are existing at the moment, but they're kind of floating over there, and people tend to ignore them and work and without paying that much attention to them. Like,
so which aspects do we touch? For instance, funding, one of the major problems in science.
Funding, publishing, tenure tracks, you name it. You just pick some.
I think we can combine funding and tenure tracks because they are relatable in a sense. So, of course, we need funds to make things work. You need money to make proper science, and unfortunately, the way I see science in the EU and in Germany in its current form is not sustainable. Why so? I mean, you might argue, it's like, but hey, Ali, I mean, from 2014 until now, Germany is increasing the budget on science. This is absolutely right. And in Germany, I must say, we're doing much better than the rest of the EU countries. I'm not sure if this is good or not, because at the end of this, one coalition, one bloc, we need the entirety of the bloc performing well. But if you happen to be at a German institution, you're still in a better position compared to the rest of the EU or the United Kingdom, for instance. They are really struggling hard there. So, but then why my little bit not so optimistic current state about science? It stems from multiple backgrounds. We're not economists, but we can digest it and break it down to the public viewership. Is that yes, we increased spending on science, but this is not corrected for inflation and for the high energy costs. And your materials are getting pricier. We are being bombarded by bureaucracy, by paperwork. I mean, just getting a recombinant protein from the United Kingdom, it gets stuck in Frankfurt customs for 1 week. They need multiple documents, calling them, calling FedEx, calling the customs. They say, speak with that side, speak with the other side. At some point, I called FedEx. This is a customer complaint to FedEx. Maybe you reply to us on X. I called you guys, say like, what is the status? On the website, it's blocked and you don't give information. And they said, yeah, you need this file to get it from FedEx, contact FedEx. Like, I thought I'm speaking with FedEx. I said, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we need to speak with other colleagues. So what are we doing? Over legislations, increasing inflation, and this has different, we can speak for 1 hour as why the inflation, because we're investing in a very productive means of wars, weapons, what have you, but let's not get let's stay a little bit positive. And then I don't know if you know, but some of the expenses for the Green Initiative are being deducted from science budgets. Mm-hmm. So how on earth can you save planet Earth by cutting on science? This doesn't work. What is this? It's insanity. Mm-hmm. So yes, there is climate change. First of all, statements, disclosure. Climate change is real. Vaccines help people. Some of the lockdown policies were good, but that doesn't mean the other political interference and cutting on budgets and by the way, the political interference is a whole different topic. Here, I think the public have general trust issues with the science, what we scientists have to say, because I mean, look at the recent policies here in the EU. Let's not speak elsewhere where we were. I mean, they were not reasonable. They were very aggressive, and I did take the 3 vaccines, and so let's not deviate from it. I'm not speaking about that. I'm speaking about some aspects, and I have to be a little bit political. I don't want to make political statements, but some aspects of using the pandemic for personal gains and for companies that are related to people in power. This is all known. So and this is what we're driving the COVID policies here in the EU. And what are we telling to the public? That science can be corrupted and can go to the whims of the politicians. And it's no better, by the way, in the United States. But let's focus on Europe. We're not Americans. So I think we have trust issues. We have to connect back to the public, like what we're doing. Like for instance, today we have to reach for social media. We have to avoid speaking about politics. I mean, I do get messages from fellow Lebanese followers on X, for instance, why you're not commenting on the Lebanese politics issues, internal issues. Like, in a sense, I understand them. I feel the urge of doing so, but I'd rather, like as a scientist, just focus on science. And because politics can get you cancelled, you will only appeal to a portion of the people, and then the other portion will hate you. So why that? Rather, if you focus on science, on facts, on findings, and connect with the people, let them gain trust again in science. This is where we should be at. For the sustainability of science in Germany, and tenure track, for instance, with all these budget cuts, and for instance, I myself, I don't know if I will get the possibility of tenure track. You can do all the good science you want, right? And if there's no opening for you, or you happen to be at the wrong place, or 1 month earlier before a position was filled, then you will miss this chance. It's not that you're not qualified. There's simply no budget. And you can refer, for instance, to a very, very lovely episode from Professor Jörg Enderlein, an earlier guest from you. He really touched, even set some numbers on how the faculty were run down. There will be no positions, just professors by 2030 or
2050.
2050. So this is a serious issue here. And the way that we are moving in Europe, I mean, don't get me wrong, I really appreciate the opportunity as a one from I don't come from rich background. I come from very, I mean, I wouldn't say poor, but we could afford our daily living, but that's about it. I wouldn't be able to have a PhD studies if I didn't have the scholarship. So I'm very grateful for the opportunities that the EU does. It's a very beautiful project. It's what humanity should be acting at, these values in the European Union. But knowing from what's happening from my country, these can be lost, and you don't take it for granted, and ask your politicians why they are taking certain policies, why they are funding certain things that are not in your interest. So, and back to science, I think we need more investments there, and we need to, as a concluding statement, we need to kick out the politics out of science. Once we kick it, we shut the door, we don't listen to the politicians, and we just do what we are good at, science. And let the public then judge for that.
That's a powerful statement. I mean, you are probably the first one who is talking a little bit more about politics and the bigger picture, but I think it's very important for the public to actually understand what is going on. And at the end, this is a public funded activity.
Absolutely. And we answer for the public. We have to explain how we use their funds and that this is taxpayers' money, right? And we should definitely put it into a good science, not politicized science. I think we owe them that much.
Unfortunately, I think there is a lot more even politics involved, especially in how the funds are delegated, not in terms of what part of the governmental funding goes to science, but also what part of this funding for science goes to different scientists. How projects are funded, and then the way how publications are published. And this is another topic where politics is highly involved, and unfortunately, this is our reality, right? I mean, we wanted to be a little bit more positive, but it turned out to be more realistic.
I mean, on a positive note, you can come from completely different background, and there are some opportunities out there. Basically, it's just that walk towards your goal, work on things that you like, and something that makes you feel good doing it. Because if you're not everyone is privileged to have this, but if you have it, cherish it, and if you don't, then put a goal where say I want to achieve 1, 2, 3 to move away to things that I do like. So and Europe allows this. So if there's nothing stopping you, basically, you can be, the sky's your limit in creativity. I'm speaking from my experience. I don't have money again to I mean, my aunt paid for my flight for Germany. I didn't have money to come here, so it's same for my computer, for my stuff. What I'm trying to say is that your background, your social status is not a limitation in Europe. It's your creativity only is the limitation. So work hard and hopefully it pays back.
I think this is a great time to end our discussion with a positive notion. Thank you very much for your really, really honest replies to these hard questions. And I think they were very reasonable. And I think that people who are listening to these episodes, they will better understand the picture behind science. Thank you very much once again, Ali.
Again, thank you for having me, and thank you for your crew. Thank you.